Morning everyone, welcome to the session. It's called Amplify Your Experience, How to Start Writing and Speaking. And Tony and I are going to share some
insights,
some tips and techniques that hopefully are going to help you get started with sharing your knowledge, your ideas, your experience with others. We're going to show you how to take a vague idea of what you could write or speak about and discover its true intent, get to know its audience, and understand the story you're going to tell them that will allow you to sort of unfold your ideas in a really simple, clear, logical way that your audience can follow, that really hits home with them. And when you do that, you amplify your experience. You give your audience the maximum benefit from what you know. And I suppose success for us today is if you take one thing you learn from us today, one tip, one technique, and use it sometime in the coming year to write an article, get an article published, get up on stage and deliver a session, or just to do a lunch and learn or something like that at your place at work.
And well, the first step, you're here, so welcome to the session. And last time when we did the session, we had to miss Tony because Tony was suffering COVID, so he was sitting in the hotel room, and I was on my own, but this time we're here together. So I would say it's still early, but it's America. A little bit applaud for yourself. You're here. It's the first step. Yes. Woo! Yes. No more Oprah. There's nothing under your chair. Nothing's going on. We're just going to start, right?
Well, how many people are here because they tried to start a blog, haven't got very far with it? How many people are here because they want to get up on stage and present? Okay. Any other reasons?
Well, there are other reasons.
There are other reasons.
Yeah.
Yes,
Also,
and understanding your motivation to share your knowledge.
But first, let's talk a bit.
I'm getting ahead.
About, well, you're here, yeah. About ourselves. So, my name is Tony. Tony Huizer in Dutch. I'm from the Netherlands. Stage name, Tony Huizer. I'm a DevOps consultant. I like people, I like technology, I like the combination of it, improvement of processes, automation, etc. But let's keep it short because there's another Tony.
I'm also Tony. I'm not a DBA or a developer. I'm an editor at Redgate Software, but I have spent the last 20 or so years trying to help other developers and DBAs share what they know, mainly about SQL Server, but recently about other database systems too. I write quite often, and I speak occasionally. I'm not a natural speaker, I don't think, but I do use the techniques we're going to share with you in this session to give me the confidence to come up on stage and share my ideas. And so hopefully they're going to help you too.
Yeah, and we like to do that in 4 sections, paragraphs, chapters, I would like to call them. So the first one is find your rhythm. So what is your motivation to start speaking or writing? And there's a lot of them. And we're going to walk them through and see if any applies to you. But if there are more reasons, please raise your hand, speak up, because we like the interactivity.
We do.
And if you found your rhythm, it's important to clear the static. Because there are a lot of blockers why you wouldn't continue your journey to put your words in writing or to start speaking. And then the next phase.
Yes, so once you've found your rhythm, got past your kind of doubts or mental blockers about why you might not be able to do this, you're kind of ready to start, but you still somehow can't quite get started. This is what section 3 is going to help you with, hopefully. It's going to show you how to take your vague idea, understand the audience, understand the story you're trying to tell, establish your true intent, really. And once you're armed with a story and a structure, you go into the final phase of delivery, where you follow a few simple rules that we're going to share, simple techniques that allow you to explain your ideas simply, clearly, and logically in a way that's going to hit your audience. And again, amplify your experience.
And we try to keep everything we're talking about today very general, because we named Tony but we are completely different persons.
Yes.
So where Tony is very strong in putting things in words, I'm more a natural speaker. So both of our approaches combined is our session. So first, let's start with find your rhythm. So this phrase, what you know will help others, can be used directly and indirectly. And on, for the audience, left-hand side, yes, you see, this is not the Bitcoin course. It's also not any other stock trading. This is my reputation on Stack Overflow. And before 2023, I was only browsing. I had an account, up some answers, but I never contributed. At a certain point in time, I thought, hey, but I know that answer. Why not contribute? And when I started doing that, people liked my answer. So they were helped by what I knew about a certain topic. So if you're a Stack Overflow user, and most of you are, or not a user, only a browser, take that extra leap if you know the answer, because something you contribute might help someone else, directly or indirectly.
Indeed. So, as Tony said, I think sometimes you can share an idea, share a bit of your knowledge, and it will help somebody pass a small problem, save them a bit of time. But on other occasions, if you get the right content to the right person at the right time, it can actually have a more profound impact. So the book on the right-hand side, the big red one, was the first technical book I ever worked on. Back in 1988, I think it was, written by a classic 90s consultant, holding a pencil, actually. Some people think it's a cigarette, but not even in the 90s. And I had this book in my hand recently, clearing out shelf space, but I couldn't throw it out. And the reason I didn't throw it out was not anything in particular I remembered about the content of the book. It was what I remembered. It was the feedback we got from it, a particular piece of feedback. And this didn't come in quickly. You know, this wasn't instant Stack Overflow response. It came in about 6 months after he'd published the book. And it was from a guy who, when he bought the book, had been stuck in a job he didn't like. He had a boss who didn't really trust him. He never got put on any interesting projects. And he'd kind of lost his confidence as a programmer. But he wrote in his email that, you know, when he'd read this book, some of the concepts around building Visual Basic database applications had kind of stuck. And he was able to apply them to improve the performance of an application at work. And for the first time in a long time, his work just got a little bit of recognition. And he told us in the email that I'm writing this email now from a new job, better pay, new boss, much happier. And he said, like, you know, it's only in hindsight that you realize how much stress that previous situation had placed him under. And not just on his professional life, it kind of seeps into his personal life as well. And it was really a thank you to the author. The email was a thank you to the author saying, thank you for giving me enough of my confidence back that I can make the leap out of that situation. And it's, you know, it was a good story for me to hear very early in my editorial career. And it's kind of stayed with me, on and off, for 20 years. Because sometimes, like I say, you'll put content out there, and it will seem to have an instant impact. You'll get feedback, and it's, you know, it's a wonderful process. Other times, you'll put out what you think is good content, and it might seem to cause barely a ripple. But sometimes, you know, content takes a while to find its mark. And if it does find the right person who needs that content at that time, it can have a big impact.
So don't doubt your knowledge.
Yes.
What you know could help others. Another reason, so motivation to start this journey, is professional growth. And I'm starting this with a picture of a very bald man, actually. Does anyone in the audience know who this man is? It is Grant. Yes. And Tony has a good story on Grant.
Yeah, so this is a picture of Grant back in the days when he was a scary DBA. I don't think he wandered around his place of work holding a broadsword, but I think he had a reputation with his developers as being both highly knowledgeable about the data, but a fierce protector of it. And that was kind of a double-edged sword. They respected his knowledge, but he wasn't somebody they naturally went to if they wanted help with their code, a bit of advice. So, and when that's the case, you can become slightly isolated in your role. When a big development project came around that was going to have a big impact on the database, Grant thought he should be central to this project, but actually, I think the developers persuaded the organization that he might become a bit of a blocker and throw up objections. So he took part in the project, but in a somewhat marginalized role. And Grant's told this story himself, so I'm not revealing anything he hasn't. But he didn't enjoy the experience. But to his credit, he used it as a real turning point. He decided from that point on, he was going to become the scary DBA who you really could go to if you needed some help and advice. And he went out of his way, actually, to help developers benefit from what he knew about databases and do their jobs better. And he he went on a professional development journey, not just getting older and a bit grayer, but, cuddlier and more approachable. And, his entire role at Redgate now is about helping others benefit from what he knows, whether they're people at conferences like PASS or Redgate customers. And I think, like I say, the turning point was him understanding that his professional identity wasn't just about his data skills. You have to be a good collaborator too. Personal growth doesn't mean just improving your data skills. It means sharing that knowledge with others, helping them be better at their jobs, so you become more valuable to the organization.
And the same growth can be in your career. In 2021, during the pandemic, I thought it was a wise idea to quit my job and become contractor again. And for that to happen, to put my name out, I started writing. But that didn't really work. Why not? I will tell you in a few other slides. But then I met this man. And this man helped me getting better content because he's an editor. And, well, that's his job, right?
Well, that's right, yeah. So I think Tony wrote an article on his LinkedIn. Wasn't getting a lot of
attention.
Yeah,
about whiskey and data, which was actually a good combination. But
then he sent me an article on data virtualization, and he was trying to tackle the quite big challenge of making a complex database system available to the developers and testers. And it wasn't beautifully written, but I could understand that Tony wasn't just kind of exploring this technology for the sake of it. He had to make it work in a real enterprise.
Yeah.
So I helped him make it better. We put it out.
And the article helped me getting to Gothenburg for the first time. There was a Data Saturday. It was last year, September. That was my first Data Saturday. So I might be a natural speaker. Maybe I'm born with the gift, I don't know. But I wasn't on stage before 2022 was the first time. So the thing is, it can help you by sharing the knowledge, so amplifying your knowledge in your career. And I wasn't really chasing the career, but I was growing my business because as a contractor, you have to grow your business, and that is your career. And from one thing, it led to other things, speaking at PASS, for example. That is me, yeah.
Yeah, no, for PASS last year and next,
yeah.
And then this.
And this better content is out there, and people find it. And with the better content, you get better in tech communication. So it does not only mean that better content needs to get out on the internet. It can also be internally. Your project proposal to your boss, or a technical documentation to your colleagues. So getting your knowledge better in writing or speaking will help you expand your career.
I think so, yeah. I mean, when you get better, when you commit not just to writing one article or just doing one presentation, actually commit to getting better at sharing your experience, explaining your knowledge clearly in a way that others can follow, you're learning better technical communication skills. And that is a core IT skill that has all sorts of other benefits. It's not always treated, I don't think, as a core IT skill, but I think it should be, because you get better teamwork, better communication with your managers, you write better project proposals, ones that will be more likely to be accepted. Your work becomes more visible and accessible to others. So even if you don't want external recognition, it will help you at your place of work in many, many ways. And it often leads to better opportunities.
Yes. And you even have an example of someone that got an opportunity
Yes,
by even stopping with writing for Tony because of his previous content. So that was not a good success story.
He was a PowerShell guy, and he'd written articles, and I'd helped him kind of improve them, helped him get better explaining his knowledge. And he'd had a string of project proposals rejected at work, and then he finally got one accepted. He was super proud of it, he really was. He had no ambitions to get up on stage or for external recognition, but that worked for him. Shortly after that, he got quite a big promotion. At that point, he writes to me and says, like, because of the promotion, I might not be able to write for you so much anymore. So, yeah, I told him to turn it down in that case, but
yeah. So those three things we just saw are a motivation to get started.
And understand which one yours is.
To
it's
find
probably hopefully all of you are here because you want to share what you know. But understand what your main driving force is beyond that.
Are there any other motivations you could think of why you are in this session? Well, yes.
How to better articulate your thoughts? Because sometimes when I think it's very clear to me, and I realize, but when I tell someone else, they have not understood it the same way that I have.
We're going to get onto that.
That's exactly the next part. So, yeah, so you want to share, so you have your motivation, but then the content isn't understandable to your colleagues. Yeah, that's the clear the static and tune your ideas. So we're getting exactly to that, yeah. So with your motivation is good. So clear the static. And let's start with a simple one. So you see the audience, but somehow there's a fence in front of it. Somehow there's a barrier. Somehow you couldn't get the article out there or on the stage. So what is blocking you? What are the main reasons? So we put a few on the slides, but there are more. So please, when we're done with this section, raise your hands if there are more, and we can just add them for the next episode of this session. So here we have a free. So
yeah, so the first three we've put loosely under imposter syndrome. So, you know, the feeling that you're not an expert in this subject. I would say to that simply, you don't have to be. You have to be obviously interested in the technical problem you're seeking to solve for your audience. And you have to have enough knowledge to know what a good technical solution looks like, but you do not have to be an expert. No. But I've suffered from this blocker myself, or what could become a blocker. One of the first sessions I ever delivered was about the SQL Server transaction log. And I had a kind of idea in my head about why even reasonably experienced DBAs didn't seem to fully understand exactly how SQL Server used the log during processes like database recovery, and they mismanaged it as a result. And also why developers saw it was a log and thought they could recycle it at will. So I mentioned this idea to an author of mine, and he said, well, yeah, but you're up against Kalen Delaney and Paul Randall in that field. Good luck. And it gave me that sort of like, am I kidding myself here? Maybe I am. But I think if you ever feel that, just remember that you're not trying to own the conversation. But if, I had an idea that I hadn't seen before about how to visually depict how SQL Server was using the transaction log during these processes. And I thought I could be part of the conversation. So I gave the talk, and it had really good feedback.
And owning the conversation is actually the second one. Well, just like the second one, because do I have anything unique or interesting to say? And there was a blocker for me. There were articles on the Redgate Product Learning about branch switching. So switching your Git branches, and then with Git hooks, all things are happening. And we needed that for our organization, but we didn't need it locally. We needed it on the server side. So our implementation was slightly off if you look at the existing articles. So yes, you still have to share it, because an implementation can be unique. So the idea might not sound unique, but implementing in your situation can make it unique. So don't get stopped by that.
And the third one, fear of getting it wrong. I think for me, if you suffer a little bit from the doubts about the first two, you're probably going to have the third one a little bit as well. What if I get up there and I make a mistake, I embarrass myself? And I think for me, the way around that is to, when you have an idea of what you want to write or speak about, take a little bit of time to explore it. Really understand who your audience is and what you want to say to them specifically, the problem you're going to help them solve. And as your thought process develop on that, show it to your peers. I know it's kind of scary, but find somebody you trust. Show you how your ideas are unfolding and what you think you can do for the audience and why you think they're going to care.
You have to start small.
That's also true as well, yeah, exactly right. But I think my point was that if you, that process will start to give you confidence in your idea, and it removes, for me at least, some of that doubts about, am I going to get this wrong or make a mistake or embarrass myself? And, because by exposing what you're thinking about to others, they find the mistakes early for you as well. It's like, doing test-driven development. Find the bugs early, and it removes that fear of getting it wrong. But as Tony said, I think you can kind of mitigate against all three of these if you actually just don't start too big. Take a small idea, something you work on every day. Perhaps you're not even intending to publish it on the internet or...
Yeah. But there's some more elaborating on the idea part. So I can't come up with a good idea. So you're trying to find the special subject to write about. Well,
yes. No, I think so. I think, you've got past those initial kind of doubts and you've decided you've got something you could write or speak about. But it has to be a good idea, right? It has to be and you can kind of think yourself into inaction, trying to come up with that killer idea. And I would say this is, in 20 odd years as an editor, this is the number one blocker. I can't come up with a good idea. A much better approach, I think, is to go, okay, I've got this vague idea. I can write about this. Let's do it. And I say that because, writing, you've got to get some content down. It's the way you explore your idea. It's the way you work out all the bits fit together and whether this is going to work. But be slightly wary of that one as well. If you just blast ahead based on only a vague idea of what you really want to achieve, that actually can become a blocker as well. So I've got a little example to talk you through.
But first back to, I can't come up with a good idea.
Yes.
Just one more time, because good ideas are things you experience at work. So there's a colleague asking you to help. That could also be the idea you're looking for to write down. Just this small advice of you, write it down. And write another idea down. So you have a list of ideas you can work on later.
Yes.
But
don't.
Like Tony said, don't think, okay, I have the idea, let's go. Because what then happens...
Get started, but yeah, so I'd written down this idea. I'd learned a lot about execution plans and wandering around Redgate. I was very excited about them, but it became very obvious that the developers were not at all excited about execution plans. They didn't use them. So I thought, okay, I can present a session on why developers should care about execution plans. And just based on that fairly ill-defined idea, I started producing slides. And I had slides on the internals, the query optimizer, how it worked, how it produced plans, how you could read those plans, what the major operators looked, how they worked, and I had about 40 slides and absolutely no idea where this thing was going. None at all. And about a week or two before I was due to give the presentation, I was in a mess. But I managed to get into a room with a chap called Grant Fritchie. And it was brutal. It really was. He sat me down and said, okay, who's this for again? And I told him, he goes, so why have you got 4 slides on the no, cut. And he just bit great chunks out of my presentation and just spat them out on the floor. And it was a bloody and brutal process, it really was. He saved the presentation, it was necessary, you know, he saved the presentation. I kind of picked over the wreckage of my presentation and sent him back a new version, and I called it After Grant Massacre. But he did save the presentation, I gave it. It probably wasn't the best presentation I gave in my life, but I did end up giving it. So I think what I'm trying to say there is, you know, because I blasted forward on a fairly ill-formed idea, didn't really talk to people about it early enough. You know, this was 2 weeks before I was due to give the presentation when I talked to Grant about it. I ran myself into trouble. So just be wary of that. You've got to think through your idea in enough detail that you know specifically what you want to give the audience and why they're going to care about it and in what form they need to hear it.
Yeah, so let's save ourselves from that bloodbath, right? And just write your idea down and use the techniques we are,
yes, exactly right.
telling about in the next section. But first we have a few more blockers that could occur.
So I think these are, yeah. So I think the first three we showed you are kind of blockers before you start. These are more like you've tried, but it was hard. The first one, I tried, but it's too hard, it took too long. After I gave this presentation I just talked about, you know, that's a picture of me running up a hill very early in my running career. And after giving it, I was glad I gave the presentation, but that's exactly how I felt. This was really hard, you know, and it took way, way longer than I thought it would. And if that's your experience, if you have, like, you know, the Grant shark coming in and biting great chunks out of your presentation and blood in the water, if that's how it works every time, that will become a blocker, yeah? Take time to explore your idea.
Yeah.
Understand who it's for and why.
We're
going to show you that in the next section.
Yeah, and the second one applies to me. Well, I started writing on Medium and on LinkedIn, but no one was interested. Or no one could find my articles.
Yeah, I tried, but no one. I think there's three aspects. You know, either you missed your audience because you didn't take the time to understand what they needed to hear from you and how they needed to hear it, or the audience missed you. Yeah. In your case, you were on a platform where your audience wasn't.
No, or not connected to me, and that's actually pretty important for LinkedIn. Yes. And the last one, and this is the last time we're gonna name Grant Fritchie because he paid us $100 for every time we name his name. So this is the last time. He's standing here, and today is kill day, so he's running around in exact that outfit today. And well, you could be impressed by it, or maybe blocked by it. Said, "Oh, that's not me, so I'm not going to do that." But you are you. Be proud of what you are, and there's room for you on every stage. Just find the right stage.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Checking the time where.
I know. Well, I would just quickly add that, you know, 20 years as an editor, I've worked with countless people who had really good technical knowledge, but I would say only 2 or 3 who walked through the door armed with both great technical knowledge and an ability to express it all beautifully. Okay? All the rest of us need coping mechanisms. We need techniques we can use to explore our idea that give us confidence in it, that it's going to hit its audience. And once you start building that confidence, you know, you find you can speak, you can get up on stage. You don't have to be a Grant Fritchie to do that. And the Grant Fritchie standing up there in a kilt, he's not the same Grant Fritchie who was a scary DBA. It took him a lot of practice and time to get there. And we talked about his professional growth journey that got him there.
Exactly. But now it's time for section number 3. So we're giving away our framework, right? So how to tune your idea. Well, at least how we use it. So how to turn your vague idea into something compelling, content to present or to write down. And well, the first step is actually a creative process. And there can be multiple creative processes. So I'm more the free-form guy. In my head, something lives and I try to put it on paper. And Tony is more concise, yeah?
I am, yes. I mean, we talked a bit earlier about how the idea, you know, I need a great idea, is a kind of a blocker. And I think because the process of exploring your idea is quite a creative process, a lot of IT people don't find it that easy. I have a friend who's at the conference actually, Brian Garrity, who's a DBA by day, but at night he's an improv comedian. And he said to me that, he never has any particular idea how the creative process is going to go. You just submit to it, and sometimes you end up with a routine that has that kind of magic that you know is going to work. And I know writing technical content is not the same as improv comedy, but this process of idea discovery is a creative process, and there's no one way it's going to work. So we're going to show you, like Tony says, several ways to do it: a structured way, an informal way, and Tony's free form.
Yep.
But they all have the same goal. They take your vague idea and they put it kind of through the prism of discovery. Is this really a good idea? Is it achievable? Is it something I can really deliver and that's going to hit home with its audience? So you're discovering your audience, the problem you're going to solve from your purpose, and the story that you're going to tell them that's going to let you explain your ideas like simply, clearly, and logically. And the deliverable from that is like an abstract, but when you read it, you get that kind of tingle of confidence. I know what I'm doing here. I know who this is aimed at, and I know why they're going to care.
But how?
How?
Yes.
Back on that previous chart, would you be able to give us an example of a content you have put out there that actually follow that framework?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. Yeah. Yes. In a few slides, Tony will put a real-world example through this prism.
So I'm going to show you my kind of slightly guardrail-y approach, which I tend to preserve for quite hefty pieces of content, a white paper or a presentation, because it's quite a structured approach. So I'm going to go back to the first example I gave, where I ended up having great chunks bitten off my presentation by Grant. Why developers need to use execution plans. I did get the opportunity to do this session a second time, and this time it was to an audience of .NET developers. So what did I do differently? So rather than just know or have this vague notion that developers didn't look at execution plans, I took some time, the footprints, that means like take some time to walk around in the shoes of your audience. So I went back to the Redgate developers, and I kind of tried to understand exactly why they weren't looking at execution plans as part of their daily jobs. And from my conversations with them, I tried to discover the true purpose of what I was trying to achieve and the story that I was trying to tell these people, why they were going to care. So what I kept hearing from developers was that, execution plans, they don't really fit into my workflow. They're heavyweight. The learning curve is high. They're going to slow me down. And I'm a developer. If my code doesn't work fast enough, I'll rewrite it. That's my job, right? But what if your logic is actually fine? That simple problem is stopping SQL Server executing that query efficiently. Couldn't you save a lot of rewrite time if you were able to spot those warning signs in the plan? So that's my story. From that, I developed my purpose. What all else was I seeking to achieve in this session? Give the .NET developers a fast, lightweight way to retrieve and read the plan. Has to fit into their workflow. Has to be simple, lightweight, fit into their workflow, and give them enough information that they can spot simple mistakes in their slowest performing queries. So now I have much more. I think hopefully you can see that now, compared to what I started with last time at the bottom, I have a much more well-defined understanding of what I'm trying to achieve. And once you have your purpose and your story, I kind of plotted out the way markers, just loosely. Doesn't have to be really rigorous, but it kind of gives you this flavor of what you're trying to achieve. What is a plan, but keep it visual and simple. How to retrieve the plan has to fit into their workflow. Has to fit into their workflow. Every example I gave in this session was in a .NET application running, generating SQL, retrieving the plan in a lightweight way, and showing them how to read it and spot those common mistakes that didn't require a rewrite, but would slow down their code. Gave the session a second time. There was no blood in the water. There was nobody buying chunks out of my presentation, and I gave a much, much better presentation, and it was really well received.
He keeps saying session, but it applies to articles as well.
Absolutely right, yeah. It's a process. This discovery process is universal, yeah? It doesn't matter whether you're preparing to give an article, write an article, or give a session.
And if you do it right, this outcome of these three things.
Yes, exactly right. So like I said, once you've got that, I kind of wrote down what I felt was quite a compelling abstract, a summary of what I wanted to achieve and why I thought my audience was cared, and I showed it to the developers.
Yeah, it might be a little small, but it are actually the three things we just saw in the right order. And then you have actually an abstract to submit to a conference like this, or to submit to the editor, say, hey, I want to write on this.
I think if I received that abstract as an editor, I would accept
Romeo?
it, no problems asked. I think it has a good chance of getting accepted at a session.
So I keep hearing you saying you had an audience which were .NET developers. Now you keep hearing from them this problem. How did you go about finding that they have that problem? Is that a process we have to engage on?
Yeah.
Sure that we know the problem, because there's a background to this. I started a blog initially 4 years ago because I assumed that most developers will be interested in knowing how to use JavaScript to create Windows applications. And I planned it out for at least 10 blog posts with things that would really resonate. I used to go to DevExpress and post those blogs. Nobody read it, right? So now that you're mentioning that you keep hearing, that makes me realize, well, maybe I need to do a little research. How do you go about that?
It literally is just, I made the observation that they didn't use them very quickly. Just by, I was talking about execution plans and they were just not interested and just told me I don't use them. But then you go back and say, why? Why? And you understand not just what they need to know from you about execution plans and what their fears are about trying to learn them, but also what form they need the content in. Do you know what I mean? That's going to really hit with them. So I had to, rewrite my session so it was all .NET based, whereas I was just using SSMS before.
But you were lucky because you had a .NET.
But I had access to those developers, yeah.
And maybe, are you self-employed or are you working in a team?
I work in a team.
Yeah. So
Start with them.
Have you tried it first in the team, so start small, so just sending it out to the team, so I'm writing on this. Are you interested in this?
And like what problem?
So that's your
free
free research because those are your teammates. So,
and just ask them, what's the most important problem you need me to solve? I think you should be interested, but tell me what you know.
Well, they know my technical expertise.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm in a team because I have the expertise.
Of course.
Not necessarily that they need to know what I'm doing. So maybe thinking about it now, it seems like I probably have targeted the wrong audience because my teammate, they really didn't care that, you had to do JavaScript and mix it with .NET, but I just did it.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel the importance to ask them. Thought it was more important to just go ahead and put that content out there that didn't even have any traction.
yeah.
Well, exactly right. I just, I had 40 slides on just great and interesting stuff about execution plans for a completely different audience. Yeah.
I forgot one thing, Tony, because the session is recorded, so we should actually repeat, of
apologies,
course, the
yes,
question.
repeat the question.
So Romeo had a question about a blog he started about JavaScript, planned out 10 episodes of his blog, but no one really cared. And he asked himself why, and by discussing, he actually found the answer. Maybe he targeted the wrong audience. But finding the right audience is hard. I'm going to explain. Is your question answered?
Yes.
I'm going to explain my more free from. Oh no, wait.
No,
We have another example.
Just one example more.
Yeah,
Sorry, yes.
how
I'll go
Tony
through this one
also
quite quickly.
applies this to other authors who come up with an idea. Yeah.
Yes. So the next example is just a kind of more lightweight implementation of the first one. It's getting you to the same point where you understand your purpose, your story, and how you're going to tell it. But when I'm doing day-to-day articles, I don't, this is quite an informal process. It's usually just over email. So, Sony, could you click, please?
Sorry.
Yeah. So an author wrote to me recently and said, how about an article about tracing Power BI datasets and debugging DAX performance on-prem so we can do tuning and avoid throttling? And that was it. And I said, well, maybe, but this is a bit vague. What specifically are you going to show? Who is your audience? He hasn't said. And what exactly are you going to show them how? What are you going to show them and how? So, I'm trying to discover his real purpose. And he wrote back to me and straight away now tells me who the audience is. It is PBI developers. And from the rest of his email, I kind of distilled what he was saying into the 3 specific tasks he was going to show them how to do. Set up customizable SQL traces for large data sets, identify in those traces the DAX queries that are the resource hogs, and then show them how to tune those queries on-premise using their standard tools, DAX Studio and Power BI Desktop. I went back to him one more time, and I said to him, OK, but why do your audience care? Why are they going to sit up and listen? And he came back and told me this story, which was perfect, really. It doesn't always happen this way. But he said, well, I'm the head of a team of developers, and we recently deployed a report that caused such severe throttling that it took down the highest spec premium capacity PBI service you can buy. And they had to live troubleshoot it. And it was a complex report, hundreds of measures, 15 levels, and rewriting it live was not fun. We have to avoid this ever happening again. And there you have it. You get to the same point, and this was just email back and forth. I now know his purpose, his story. If you put those 3 elements together into an abstract, again, you have an article that any editor would accept. You have a basis for an excellent session abstract.
And the 3 things we're trying to find here even work in my free-form idea exploration. So on the right-hand side, I've written them down, and they're red because I've not met my checkboxes yet. So this is actually a real-world example again. I was talking with some Redgate folks, and somehow I got into an obligation of writing an article about TDM.
I'm very good at getting people into obligations.
Yeah, so TDM is this tool of Redgate. They launched it last year. I write technical content for Redgate, but they specifically asked me to write non-technical about TDM, which was pretty hard for me.
Yes.
But I said yes. Tony found out of this and said, where is your article coming? They're pushing on me. So, well, it was actually when I was on journey to Sweden.
Yes.
So to get rid of my obligation, I thought, okay, you know what? I just use ChatGPT, and then, well, maybe, I mean, for the technical content, it's harder, so I do it for the functional content. But, I mean, starting with the first sentence, in the dynamic realm of software development, well, it's ChatGPT and flowery words all over the place. So I thought, okay, fuck. Oh, sorry, in America. Beep. This is a problem. So I tried to rewrite it, tried to cover my tracks, and send it to my editor because, yeah, it's the obligation, I had to do it.
Yeah, so he sent me that this was kind of the first
It is unreadable, but
yeah,
it's meant to be unreadable because it's horrible.
I opened it and thought, oh gosh, I've broken my best author somehow, because it was not very good. But I did kind of admire the fact, I knew he was stuck on this, and I kind of admired the fact that he didn't allow himself to just be totally blocked. He'd found a way forward, you know? He was trying to explore how am I going to do this article. It's not really my home territory. He'd used ChatGPT and come up with something kind of terrible.
Yeah,
but he was making progress, and he said, well, look, I've got an idea about how I might be able to explain to you what I think I need to achieve.
Because when I was talking to Saskia and she asked me to write the article, I had something in my head to do it. But when I started, I was blocked because no technical, no product names, no technical. It was bouncing in my head, and I thought, okay. So my prompt to ChatGPT was actually all the information I did know, leading to this. But there was something else in my head, and there was a diagram. I had a diagram in my head that explained the whole idea without getting technical. So I thought, this is what I need to do. So I came off the ferry from Gothenburg, stepped into a train to Hamburg, and in 1 hour, I draw this diagram. This was exactly in my head. And now Tony said, something went, hey, now I understand what you're trying to do.
Well, I know. I mean, just in diagrammatic, he couldn't say it. He was blocked on that, but he managed to draw. Like, this is what Tony thinks a credible test data management solution looks like from a developer's point of view. You know, they have to be able to, they have access to different types of data set for whatever type of testing they're going to do. They need to work in dedicated personal databases, otherwise they just don't have freedom to test anyway. And we'd like to be able to instantly reset, like do some development work, run some tests, and then instantly reset the database back to how it, and the data back to how it was. So he's kind of showing me, okay, this is what he thinks a good solution looks like. So the article is like, this is what it looks like. How do you get there?
And from the diagram, you could distill the audience, because there were devs and tests.
Yeah.
And so also the manager of those devs and tests should read this article, because that was actually the assignment. And, well, he liked the diagram. And like I said, it's a real-world example. We just copied and pasted our conversation just to show you how this free-form process of mine sometimes happens. This is an extreme form because I didn't really like the content of not getting technical, but okay.
But I've learned from this as well, you know, because I have that much more structured approach. It's actually, you know, quite interesting to see that. No, just kind of go with it. And you'll find a path through.
Yeah, so the story was around the diagram. From the diagram, you could distill the audience. And we found the purpose also already in the article. And to be honest, this was a hard edit. You had to edit pretty much, but...
well, not once you gave me the diagram. I think if you click on the next slide. Oh, no, so yeah, this is just a summary. You know, you're doing the same process, but in a much more free-form way. You know, we asked him to write something like about the benefits of test data management. It's quite vague. So he's gone through this process with ChatGPT and then drawing it down. And we've come up with like, okay, the article's about this. We're going to give them a strategic view of what a credible TDM system looks like and steps to achieve it. And from that, I was able quite quickly to get a structure for the article.
Yeah, but the structure was a part of the process was the floor plan.
Yeah, but if you click next, and again. So I just used a diagram, and I said to Tony, well, is this how it works in this order? Is the first thing you need to do make these, you know, develop these different types of data sets, whether they're generated or subsets or whatever? And he said, no. The first step is you've got to let the developers have dedicated development databases. Otherwise, they have no freedom to test in the first place. So, okay, so there you go. That's the first step. For the first step, what does it look like? And the steps to get there is enable dedicated databases, allow service, and then from there expand the range of data sets they have available. And that's the structure we used for the article. Yeah, and it was, I have to say, that it got a lot of recognition by my company, Redgate, because it had told a very simple story in a very compelling way.
Yeah, I even got invited to talk on one of their events in London, so that helped as well.
Yeah.
And that was before they launched TDM, so we couldn't talk about the product because it was still not launched, but we had to empathize on
but
the terminology.
Whatever way you get there, we've come at a way to explain the ideas simply, clearly, logically, in a way that other people can understand, even non-technical people, actually. In this case, the Redgaters, who saw it, really loved the article, invited Tony to a conference, you know.
And I'm already at the next slide, Tony, because I'm
go for it. Go on, we're running late.
So again, back in my head, things happen like this. And it's messy, I know. It's free form, that sounds better, right?
So this is a structure, this is how you hand the presentation at PASS. Really.
Yeah, this is a structure for my pre-con last year at PASS. And of course, it didn't start like this. This is the end goal. And Tony took the liberty to put it in a more readable format for you. But it was just me with a set of pencils. And if you want to make a picture of my drawing, you can, right? But it was just me with a set of pencils and an A3 paper and just getting everything that's in my head out there. And of course, it went in phases. And those phases actually circle back to Tony's basic purpose.
Yes, on the right-hand side, he's written down, what's my purpose? These are the 3 things I really need to deliver for the audience.
Yeah, so I had like a full day, and I wanted to convince database people that they could control their database with introducing Git. If they do that, they get stability, and then they can introduce automation for their processes. That was my goal.
Yeah.
And from that, I created a structure
Yeah.
with the schedule I got from PAS.
That's right. So the big difference, obviously, when you're presenting is you have a time schedule. So you have to break it down into that and make sure you stick to it. Writing, doesn't have such restrictions.
And even things like emergency laptop and lunch could have implications on your presentation, because if you have a full room and some of the people don't have a laptop with them, how do you solve it? So, but it's not part of the purpose or the story, but it could inflect
Yeah.
in the structure. And eventually, I came to the story. So what am I trying to tell in what part? So again, Tony's basic purpose story structure was in this messy thing somewhere. We will share all the updated slides. The old version is still on the PAS site, but we will upload the V2 with some minor tweaks.
Just really quickly summing up, I think do start producing content early. You've got to explore your idea. Do be wary, though, that if you just blast forward on a quite ill-defined idea, where you don't quite know what the audience wants from you and what form they need it, you'll end up in a hole. You can do, I did. Instead, next slide, please, Tony. You go through the idea discovery process. You know your audience, the problem you're going to solve for them, what your real overarching purpose is, and the story you're going to tell. You develop a structure. From that comes a compelling pitch or abstract. Share that with your peers. Does it convince you? Does it convince them? Get some confidence in your idea. And then, when you have that tingle of confidence, I think you know it. Like, okay, I think this has got legs. I think I understand what I'm trying to achieve. I can do it. It's going to hit the audience. That's a good idea.
And from that point,
Final stage.
we need to
Now just got
amplify
to
the idea.
deliver that idea with maximum impact.
Yeah, we have to continue, because we could fall back, but we shouldn't. So there are some simple rules and tools we like to explain to you. So, well, this is a cool graphic art that Tony last minute put
It's
in
Tony
there.
art, so it's
Yeah,
just
this is a,
dazzling.
because
But-
if I did it, it was like with markers and stuff. But
So there's, just simple techniques you can use. So you've done some good work understanding your audience, your purpose, your story. Don't kind of then forget that in the excitement of producing the content. I've made that mistake. I've seen others make the mistake. So tips and techniques that work, I think they're kind of universal, but the stuff I'm going to start with stuff that I suppose has slightly more of a writing bias, although a lot of this stuff isn't. So first, you've walked around in the shoes of your audience. That's who you're writing for. And don't forget that when you start writing, okay? You want to explain your ideas to them in a way that works for them, okay? Not necessarily, and that might not necessarily always be the way you were taught it or the way you understand it. You have to be open to feedback, that there might actually be a more accessible or a better way to explain these ideas to that audience. That's why I say audience first, ego second, okay? It's not really about you. It's about delivering your ideas with maximum impact for your audience. Write to your audience. Start strong. You've discovered your purpose and your story. Could you just click for me, Tony?
yes,
Sorry. You've discovered your purpose and your story. The first paragraph, if you're writing, that's all the paragraph is about, okay? What problem are you going to solve for the audience? Why are they going to care? Capture their attention. I used to do Database Weekly, which is like a weekly blog saying, these are the most interesting blog posts for your attention this week. I just had to go through all of the ones that were posted, pick the ones worthy of attention, write a little paragraph summarizing what they were about, and add a link. Sounds easy, but actually it really wasn't. Because some people with great technical knowledge really managed to obscure what they're really talking about. I would read 3/4 of an article before I would understand what the article was really about. That's a common mistake. Start strong. First paragraph, only your purpose, only your story. Stick to it. And then after that, just stay on track.
but Tony, the same applies with presentation.
Yes, absolutely. This
Yeah.
applies to presentations
Yeah,
as well.
so start strong. You can start with the title slide, just like we did. And then we introduced someone on stage and then let you applaud. makes no sense, of course, but a little bit, start strong. I got your attention. And when I do technical sessions, I like to start with fancy diagrams that people think, oh, what's happening here? So I have their attention. So start strong also helps in getting the attention of the audience.
Yes, very true, very true.
Now you can talk about...
I get overexcited, don't I? Sorry.
Stay on track, Tony.
Stay on track. Stay on track.
Don't
Tony.
digress.
Start strong, stay on track. Just don't let yourself digress or get sidetracked into interesting side alleys. I do that quite a lot. I'm attracted to the detail. But remember your purpose. Is this really relevant to what I'm trying to achieve? You know? Or is it just interesting to know, but actually you could refer them somewhere else for that? And try to explain your ideas. Use your story. Try to explain your ideas in a simple, logical train of thought. You know, every paragraph has a point that's moving the narrative forward to achieving your purpose. Okay? Again, I've seen so many, I've done it myself, articles that start off on the right path and then just veer off into the weeds because they haven't, remembered all of this.
And never skip an important part of technical information. Well, I did a pre-con this year again, and we thought, I did it together with Olivier van Steenland, he's from Belgium, and we thought that setting up a Visual Studio project would be walk in the park. We don't need to explain that. But this is an important technical part we skipped, and we shouldn't. That's the homework we take with us for next time. So never underestimate, and it's again your audience, never underestimate what the knowledge is, but also look at how you can provide any mishaps.
Exactly right, yeah.
In technical gaps.
You want momentum and forward momentum, but don't skip the hard parts. If they really do need to know that, you've got to cover it. So sharpen your text.
That's
so this is kind of, sorry Tony, did you want to?
No, it's the second, yes. Sharpen
Yes.
text, yes, sorry.
This is kind of my home turf because I spend a lot of my time doing this as an editor. So I'm going through text and making kind of incremental changes that improve its clarity and reduce its ability to kind of mislead or confuse the reader. Just this is one example. So I say concrete versus quicksand. I think most people are much better able to kind of generalize from a specific example. That's much easier for them than going the other way. So if I write, if a developer has access to your QA server with sysadmin permissions, bad things could happen. But the point is, I think most people will understand that might not just developers this applies to, and it's not just your QA server, it could be your staging server. It could be any high-privileged account. But I've given you a specific example of what I mean. If instead you write it like, if non-production personnel have access to controlled or sensitive environments using a database role that has there's nothing particularly wrong with that paragraph. I think you know what it means. But if your whole article is like that, you're writing in generalizations, it's quicksand. It is. Your reader will sink into it and get confused. So try to be concrete. Give people specific examples of what you mean to illustrate your point. In the age of AI, this is a big one. Avoid kind of convoluted, hyperbolic, exhausting to read text. This is a real example again that an author submitted to me. This is me, I have to do this in kind of a voiceover. It's like, leveraging business intelligence solutions for actionable insights and game-changing for this is modern enterprises. I know. So when I finally worked out what he meant, business intelligence solutions help companies make better decisions by analyzing large data sets to predict trends. It's simple, straightforward English that you can follow. So just a few other ones I'm going to go through really quickly because we're running out of time, I think. One that I get all the time is, we used to have a banned words list when I used to edit Simple Talk, thingamajig words, like system, environment, stuff, people, thing. This is IT. Terms have a very specific meaning. Use them consistently. I've had so many articles as well that just use kind of slightly confusing variation. If you mean authentication, that's what you really mean. Say it. Don't keep switching between authentication, authorization, access rights, login rights, as if they mean the same thing. Use your terms consistently. Concrete examples, I've already covered that. Proof of value, yes, please don't tell me that this is game-changing or, the next big thing. Just show me, demonstrate to me why These are value. And the conversational style. You should be able to read your text out loud, and it sounds natural. You know, allow your personality into it. Again, in the age of AI, very important. If you have a kind of fairly formal textbook way of writing, it's not ideal. You want your personality in there. But do use simple international English. That's the final one. If you use, you want your personality, but don't use local colloquialisms that somebody like Tony with English as a second language would probably struggle to understand. Don't put barriers in the way of your audience like that.
And then sharpen your presentation, and there are actually features within PowerPoint that can help you. And I don't know if all the people in the room already are aware of this. So I just wanted to point them out. So one of them is Rehearse with Coach, which is a beta feature, which records what you are saying and is giving live feedback on don't use too much, speak up, speak slower, etc. But the timings, and we should work on that, rehearse timings, but I think we're fine, is another option within your slideshow, within PowerPoint, that you can just use to rehearse your presentations. Well, start strong, we already talked about that one.
But it applies equally to presentations, like you said, with your, you've got to capture people's
Yeah.
attention quickly.
And treat it like a performance. Well, I like to do that. And
I tried my best.
you try your best, but it is a performance. You are sitting here trying to learn something, trying to enjoy the show. So it is a show. This is your audience. You should perform for them. And another thing, and that is especially when your English is your second language, like myself, I tend to speak very fast. When I speak in English, I try to speak slower. And there are other international speakers here who do the same. And while their English is not perfect, well, speaking slow, everyone can understand. Well, and try to enjoy this. I mean, you're here because you want to learn, and you're not here to fail us, right? Well, Peter was, but he already left, so that's.
Yeah, no, I try to remember it. I think, especially at events like this, the audience does want you to succeed. So, I've had nerves bite me really hard, sometimes up on stage. I've come off a stage and actually been able to tell you nothing about the entire presentation.
So we talked about...
Try to master that now.
We talked about text. We talked about text, Tony. We talked about presentations. But there's something like an umbrella, your profile, your online existence within the company or outside of the company. And I have two examples where I helped people. Well, one of them is standing right next to me. Tony had an issue at work. Well, not a big issue, but he's working for 20 years now at Redgate.
Yes.
But still, content he published weekly doesn't get the recognition it needs to get. He was not that visible within the company. And we have a weekly meeting. We meet up via Zoom. We talk about new content, what content I can write. And while I was standing in the shower, I thought, how can I help Tony? So I said to him, okay, Tony, next time when we meet, we're going to record a part. I am going to do the post-production, and we're going to put it online for internal use. And Tony like, no, I have to rehearse this. And I said, no, just natural. I'm just going to ask you some questions like I do every week. Is there new content, what we're going to make, et cetera, et cetera. And the first one was hard, right?
Yeah, because he wouldn't let me rehearse or anything, or work out what I was going to say.
Rehearsal.
It was just,
I want the real Tony.
He just started recording.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
But how horrible it was, we put it online, internally.
That was the other thing. He goes, you've published this today. And he was like, otherwise I report it to, was it my boss? It could have been.
No. Yeah, well.
But the point is, I'm very good at putting it, I work with authors, we put out good content, but then you move on to the next one. And this is just, you've got to take the time to make your work, that's just for me, but generally, you put out an article you've put a lot of work into.
Don't be shy about it.
Don't be shy about it.
Don't be shy about it.
You've got to let people know why this is interesting, why they should care about it, You've got to make your audience notice.
And it worked, because
it did work.
It was used internally, but after one episode, the social media manager of Redgate asked us, can we publish this externally? I said, okay, that's no problem. And now we have a weekly show. And we had episode number 8, and we will start a new season after pause.
You should tune in, it's brilliant.
On the right-hand side, you see a German lady, Marisol Steinau. She's a speaker, and she sent me a message about our upcoming pre-con that she couldn't attend, and she really liked the content I write, and Olivia does. And she looked up to me that I'm this international speaker, etc., etc. I said, yeah, but I think you're speaking more than me. No, I'm only doing this since 2022, so it could be, right? And I looked at her profile at Sessionize, and for the people who are not speaking yet, Sessionize is a profile, or is a website with all the call for speakers on it, where you can submit your sessions. But her Sessionize profile was not open. I could not find her as a speaker. So I said to her, well, open your Sessionize profile, then you can be more visible. And when she did that, she also forgot another thing. Publish the events you spoke at. Don't be shy about it. Be proud of it. Because people can see, I spoke here, I spoke there, so maybe next time you speak at the next event. So then she enabled her Sessionize event log. You know what? She has been at more conferences speaking than me, than I had. So
Yeah,
she was
many
very
more
shy
conferences,
about
much
it,
lower
but she
profile,
should be
yeah.
proud about it. So I helped Marisol, and I asked her if she wanted to be in the presentation, of course. And so look at your profiles. So just like Romeo, he wanted to find his audience. He's maybe looking for it now. Open your profile so you will connect with others and maybe find the right audience.
I think so. You know, I'm hoping what we've shared with you today gives you the kind of skills to, you know, take you what you know and just make it more visible and accessible to your audience by explaining your ideas simply and clearly. But once you've done it, you do have to do also then go and say, here it is, and this is why, you know, tell them about it. That's the kind of bit I forgot.
Another question.
I know, like, time is real slow, but you were talking about the audience. So I understand identifying your audience, and the first step is starting up strong and getting their attention. But I've realized there are audiences that you get their attention for the first 5-10 lines, and you lose their attention. They're people with ADHD. Do you have, like, perks or, like, I would say pointers on how to keep the attention of your audience?
Well, the question is how to keep the attention to the audience.
You start strong, but their attention wanders off.
Yeah, well, I like to give a lot of demos that will get attention, mostly. If you just do slides, well, we have slides here, I know, because it's non-technical. So that could help if you present on a technical subject.
Well, for me, it's that one I said about, you know, stay on track. Remember who you're talking to. Remember what your purpose is. And, you know, that sense of forward momentum towards a purpose. I mean, I've given presentations on the transaction log where I was actually showing them the internals of the log, you know, like bit by bit. And I looked up at the audience and they were looking at me like, what the? And you will lose their attention. It was not the right audience for that.
Or maybe introduce more interactivity. So the people, like you said, with ADHD could think, oh, I'm part of it, so I have to now act with the presenter. So it depends on the audience. So I did a session in Vancouver, Washington last Saturday. I did the same session in Sweden. We did a start strong the same way. It didn't work in America, somehow. It was the room layout was not right. The doors were still open. So there are sometimes influences that you cannot control. And so don't give up on it. So if it doesn't work this one time, it could work a second time at another audience.
It is understanding the form you know, what form your audience needs to hear that content. Have you got that right?
But looking at the clock
what
tone,
examples will really capture their imagination? Have you got that right? You know, it's not easy. It's not easy. It really isn't. There's no easy answers to
I
that.
had presentations starting up, and midway, I can tell from the audience they're lost.
Yeah.
So, like, I had the attention in the beginning, like, so I was like, okay, probably you have, like, maybe examples of,
Yeah.
giving that as an answer is pretty much good, staying on track and not
But understand your story and where it's going, and always remember that. Perhaps you've just drifted off that into the weeds.
Yeah, the flip the phone 5 minutes, that is a thing, yeah, that's right. But
Final thing,
before everyone just leaves the room to go to the next sessions, there is a next session today, 2 o'clock, about the ethical use of AI. So we won't cover AI here due to lack of time, but also to invite you to come there, because AI is here. I'm using it on a daily basis. If it's ethical or not, you can decide if you come to that session.
Yeah.
And
But generally, we got time for those 2 points?
no, I don't think so. I think so, Tony. It's 5 minutes, so we have to wrap up before
the
everyone
creative
just
stuff-
start running.
All the stuff we've taught you about how, the creative part of the process of discovering your audience, understanding your intent, your story. If you feed that to AI, you will get meaningful outputs. It can't do that part for you, I don't think. Human decision making is kind of critical to like the well-being of your content. Don't abnegate that. People want you, not AI.
So if you will start talking, if you start writing, share it with us. And if you have any feedback on our session, please fill out the evaluation. And if you want to become a speaker, Ben Wiseman and William Durkin have this beautiful initiative called New Stars of Data. They're always looking for new speakers. They're always looking for helpers and mentors. So Ben paid a lot of money to put his slide on here. So here's the slide. No, I'm just kidding. This is an open community. We want new speakers. And there's a new virtual one coming on next 2025. That's it. So it's
go here. Good ending.
my name goes here.
End strong.
And strong.
No, seriously, if you do get, for me, success is you use something you learned here today to do something small work that shares your knowledge. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.